Hey, good afternoon to you. 3:06 now, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news coming up. Congressman Pat Fallon joins us at 3:30. He got a chance to ask some questions today of dear old Hunter Biden. Congressman Fallon will explain. Also, I hear he's got a great story about Eric Swalwell. I'm going to ask him about that, too. And then Emily Jashinsky is here at 4 o'clock from The Federalist. We're going to talk about the downfall of Kamala Harris. She's writing about this week. Also, I'll ask her about the breaking news that Mitch McConnell has given us his 8 months notice. I'm leaving in 8 months, and I'll no longer be the leader. Yeah, that was earlier today. Details on that ahead. Cal Thomas is here at 4:30, our old friend Cal. We'll talk to him. He's got some announcements to make. And Brandon Judd will join us at 5 o'clock, the head of the Border Patrol Union, as Joe Biden and Donald Trump both make visits to the border tomorrow, and they will be very different. Brandon Judd will explain why. That's ahead. You can join us, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Every morning I have the privilege of sitting in on the editorial call for the Daily Caller, where I'm also an editor. And this morning we were in the midst of it when our White House correspondent Reagan Reese got her notification that, the president's on the move. He's headed off to a physical at Walter Reed right now, spur of the moment. So nobody in the press was made aware that this was happening. They never released any statements or advanced schedule about this or anything. Now, this is a pretty routine thing, right? If a president of the United States gets an annual physical, you could even announce days in advance. He's going to a military base. It's a secure facility. In fact, it's actually a public service to announce it ahead of time because of the logistics involved in moving the president. There's going to be traffic disruptions, all of those things. They didn't do that. In fact, it was like, boom, right away this morning, suddenly everyone's on the move. And this goes right to what I was telling you yesterday. Right. If you didn't hear it, it was towards the end of the show yesterday. If you're a 3 o'clock hour listener, you may have missed it yesterday. But I was explaining that one of the major differences in the Biden presidency versus every other presidency is this White House does not put things on the schedule. They do not put things on the schedule because they are not clear on whether or not Joe Biden has the mental capability that day to do that event. So the second they're able to establish that he's got it, he's with it enough, they add something to the schedule and they push him out the door. So the schedule they keep is secret from the rest of us. It's a game time decision in each and every case. Well, sorry, he's on IR today. We can't have that event. But if he's with it enough, they go ahead and then they announce things. And that has a big impact for a lot of people, including the law enforcement who are tasked with moving the president of the United States. They don't know what's happening. So there's a mad scramble for all of these police officers and federal agents, everybody, to get into position to move this guy because nobody has advance notice because you never know if he's going to be with it. So this morning, he must have had enough sentences strung together coming out of his mouth that they thought, okay, this is a good day for the physical. It's kind of like, how if you ever have an elderly relative or friend who struggles with mental decline, and you kind of assess on a daily basis how they're doing. Friends will call and they say, how's she doing today? She's having a good day today, actually. She's having a good day. She's out, she's gardening a bit. She ate her whole breakfast. It was great. She's doing good today. And then sometimes it's like, hey, could we come over today? Could we see her? Not today. Today's a bad day, right? And people talk, they're gentle about it, but they want people to know it's one of her off days. It's one of his off days. It's not good today. Well, that's what we have with the president of the United States. That's the current arrangement we have, quite unfortunately, for him and definitely for us. And so this morning, they rush him off to a physical. They're like, now's the time. Throw him in the vehicle. Let's go. We've got to get the physical done today. This is our best shot at the best possible spin we could possibly give on how his health is doing. And so they do. Now, in the midst of all of this, there are obvious questions that come with a presidential physical for Joe Biden. When are they going to have him do a cognitive test? Simple things. Just test his memory, test his ability to navigate his thoughts. The basic things, the stuff that Donald Trump willingly subjected himself to in the face of all of the calls for the 25th Amendment. He was like, I'll do a cognitive test. I don't even care. He did it. And then, of course, the left mocked him for doing the cognitive test at all. And now you have a president who's refusing to do it. And in fact, the White House just moments ago said he doesn't even need one. He doesn't even need one. Now, of course, from Karinge Jean-Pierre's perspective, Biden probably is far smarter than her. But here's Karinge explaining that Biden is as fit as a fiddle when it comes to his mind.
Did the president take a mental fitness or a cognitive test during his physical this morning?
So let me just say I did see Dr. O'Connor, and he stopped by my office earlier today after the president completed.
Why isn't he here? Why isn't Dr. O'Connor here? Why isn't he out here answering our questions right now?
His physical this morning, as you all know. He was happy with how everything went, and as soon as he finishes completing the memo, it will be a robust, comprehensive memo. We will certainly share that with all of you, as we have done in the last 2 years.
So how likely is it that the memo reveals some grave medical concern? How likely is that, right? This is not going to be the Robert Hur report. The doctor's not going to come out and be like, look, he was having trouble in the room, even, remembering basic things. He forgot the name of the doctor, whatever. You're not going to see any of that. And it's going to be a North Korean memo talking about what great shape he's in.
And look, you saw the president return to work. He took some of your questions not too long ago, and you saw he's going to continue to fight for the American people. In this particular instance, he was talking about fighting crime. So the president's going to continue that.
Yeah, he had a big event today where you talked about fighting crime. Of course, he didn't mention any of the people who were killed by illegal immigrants on his watch.
Process as it relates to you were asking me about a cognitive test. As it relates to that, look. The president doesn't need a cognitive test. That is not my assessment.
He doesn't even have a brain. Why would he need a cognitive test?
Not my assessment. That is the assessment of the president's doctor. That is also the assessment of the neurologist, who has also made that assessment as well. And, and you've heard us say this.
Look, what's so crazy, though? You know what's so crazy about the left? There's so many things, but the left's position is that Joe Biden, if he so desired it, would be eligible for a pregnancy test. Right? Their position is that men can be women, women can be men. There's no such thing as a mother. It's now a birthing person. So in their science, in their rubric, Biden is perfectly eligible for a pregnancy test, even at the advanced age of 81 years old. But he doesn't need a cognitive test, you see. A cognitive test, well, that's completely out of bounds.
And I'll reiterate this. The president's doctor has said, if you look at what this president, the president who is also the commander-in-chief, he passes a cognitive test.
She learned that this morning. There was a fun fact she wanted to share with everyone.
Every day. Every day. Okay.
All right, anyway. So cognitive test every single day. Here, more from Karinge.
I think folks need to understand that the president passes, again, a cognitive test every day. If you look at what a clinical cognitive test is actually, what it actually...
Oh, tell us. Please, I can't wait for her description of a clinical cognitive test. Please, Dr. Karinge.
It is a 15-minute appointment that is administered by someone that most of the time people don't actually know. And
wait, what does that mean? What is she even talking about? This is interesting. So one, she's apparently aware of how long a cognitive test takes. I guess, does that tell you anything? Did she do some research, or somebody told her, hey, this is a 15-minute thing? So the White House has apparently been contemplating subjecting him to a cognitive test if she's been informed on how long one would take, right? Why would it get to Karinge, that detail? Okay, so 15 minutes, she said, but it would be administered by somebody who we probably don't even know. What does that have to do with anything? I assume that would be a doctor who would administer the cognitive test. They're not walking out to Pennsylvania Avenue and grabbing a panhandler and say, hey, would you administer this test? I don't even care what your name is or whether you shower. No, it would be a doctor who would administer the test. She says it would be a complete stranger, so that's dangerous for Joe Biden.
That is administered by someone that most of the time people don't actually know. And the president has a team of doctors that is with him 24/7, and he is able to do the work every day that is rigorous. That is more rigorous than it would be for any 15-minute clinical appointment.
So insane. I stand by what I've said before. You know who else needs a cognitive test? Karine Jean-Pierre. Honestly. You do it first, and then we'll have Joe Biden do it. You can kind of be like a food tester for him. You could do the cognitive test first, see how it goes, and tell Joe whether it's safe. I just want to see the results of the cognitive test for Karine Jean-Pierre. So that's the announcement today. And so they're still working up the memo. Apparently, it takes some time for them to share the results with us of whether or not he's healthy. And no cognitive test necessary because he demonstrates it every single day. Like he did earlier this week when he went on the late night television show that doesn't even get 1 million viewers on NBC to try and convince the public that he's with it. And boy, did he look old. Did he look old today? You know who else looked old today? You had the now outgoing leader of the Republicans in the Senate, Mitch McConnell. The breaking news this afternoon is that Mitch McConnell has announced that he is leaving as leader. He's going to stay in the Senate, he claims, until 2027. I doubt this. I don't think he's 2027. McConnell's going to stay in the Senate. Like, there's no chance. 27? Especially without power, right? It'll be like Kevin McCarthy. The second he doesn't have power, I've got other plans now. And he's just going to leave. But McConnell today announcing that he is going to be stepping down in November. Here's a little bit of Mitch McConnell on the Senate floor today.
So as I've been thinking about when I would deliver some news to the Senate, I always imagined a moment when I had total clarity and peace about the sunset of my work. A moment when I'm certain I have helped preserve the ideals I so strongly believe. That day arrived today.
Is he going to make it to November? What? He said it's 2024. I'm now 82 years old.
But now it's 2024.
He's older than Biden.
I'm now 82. As Ecclesiastes tells us, to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under heaven. To serve Kentucky in the Senate has been the honor of my life. To lead my Republican colleagues has been the highest privilege. But one of life's most underappreciated talents is to know when it's time to move on to life's next chapter.
Oh boy.
So I stand before you today, Mr. President, and my colleagues, to say this will be my last term as Republican leader of the Senate. I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. However, I'll complete my job my colleagues have given me until we select a new leader in November and they take the helm next January.
November. Why November? Why November in particular? Why is he waiting 8 months to do this? Why not step down as leader now? Why not elect somebody now? Why not? And if you wanted to wait through this term, why not allow who the voters choose to represent them as Republicans in the Senate to choose the next leader? The answer to that is, I think it's the most Mitch McConnell thing ever. There's clearly, he's trying to move the chess pieces in a way that satisfies his own ends rather than ours. I'll explain in just a moment. It's 3:20 now. Yeah, so Mitch McConnell announced today that he is going to be stepping down as Republican leader in November. That's, based on the math here, about 8 months from now. November? Why November? Well, a couple things are happening right now. One is that, remember, the groundswell against Mitch McConnell has been growing among a bunch of Republican senators who are now willing to say it on the record. In the past, McConnell's been able to stave a lot of this off, and you get onesies or twosies speaking out against him, but it's growing now. Just in the recent weeks, and it's not just Rick Scott. You see Rand Paul, and you see Mike Lee, and Ted Cruz, and J.D. Vance, and Tommy Tuberville, and person after person after person coming out saying they are horrified by the Senate deal to sell out the United States of America and give amnesty to the tens of millions of illegal immigrants who are pouring across our border. A complete scam orchestrated by Mitch McConnell, done by James Lankford in coordination with the Democrats. It makes its way through the Senate, but it gets killed in the House. It gets killed because, thank goodness, Mike Johnson said this thing's dead on arrival. It's not happening. The whole bill dies because of the backlash from the right, and these Republican senators are furious. The ones who are willing to speak out about it are furious, and apparently, behind closed doors, things have been getting even worse. Henry Rogers, over at the Daily Caller, says today that he is being told on background, that is, somebody trying to keep their identity a secret, that a group of senators have been seriously discussing behind closed doors another push to replace Mitch McConnell for his repeated, quote, border betrayals. And this announcement is timed because his staff sense that rebellion is in the winds. Additionally, Sean Davis over at the Federalist expressing today that Senate insiders are telling him that McConnell's surprise announcement is a desperate move to retain his grip on power, as his support within the conference is cratering following his disastrous attempt to rubber stamp Biden's open borders amnesty policy. Rather than face a formal vote of removal, McConnell announced his plan to resign the leadership post in November. Career Senate staff say that momentum was building within the Senate Republicans to formally oust McConnell as leader. Even a growing number of moderates were angry at the chaos he was sowing in the conference, one Senate GOP aide told Sean Davis, a senior Senate aide. An open rebellion against McConnell was in the works due to his, quote, repeated sabotage of Republican priorities and border inaction, the aide said. Others told him that McConnell's move was entirely cynical, an attempt to cling to power for another 8 months. He's just trying to get ahead of a possible defenestration, one aide said. Of course, the word meaning being thrown out the window. Defenestration. So, what we have here is interesting. Right now, this very week, you had McConnell in the White House yesterday with Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries and Mike Johnson. And guess what the parties were in that White House? Well, it was Mike Johnson versus everybody else, apparently. Mike Johnson said, we need border security. Everybody else was saying, no, we need to send more money to other countries. Ukraine, namely. That's what we need to do. And Mike Johnson, hopefully, I hope he comes out of this like Leonidas, just fighting everyone. Just a couple of guys just swashbuckling, fighting. Leonidas gets killed in the end, by the way. Sorry, not to spoil it for you. So I don't know. Hopefully it doesn't end that way. But fighting back against these guys. But Chuck Schumer yesterday was saying, yeah, Mitch McConnell stands with me. We want more funding for Ukraine. He's like, Schumer said yesterday he saw the border. He was horrified by what he saw. And then when he was asked to clarify, he said the Ukrainian border. What a nightmare. What a complete nightmare. McConnell trying to let the air out of a rising rebellion right now, saying, don't worry. I'm headed for the exits. I'm leaving in November. You have nothing to worry about. But meanwhile, he's not letting the voters pick the Republicans who would choose his replacement. He's making it so that he's still around come November to pick his heir, to make it so that the old guys are in charge going into the new Congress. Don't let it happen. Don't let it happen. We'll cover that and so much more. We await a conversation with Pat Fallon, a very live, moving target right now as they question Hunter Biden on the Hill. Pat Fallon, a part of that today. He'll be joining us on the program. A lot more ahead on the Vince Coglianese Show. Hey, good afternoon to you. 3:35 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up today, I've got Emily Jashinsky at 4 o'clock from the Federalist. We talk Kamala Harris and Mitch McConnell with her. Big topics today. Cal Thomas will be with us coming up at 4:30. And then Brandon Judd, the head of the Border Patrol Union, is here at 5 o'clock. That's before Joe Biden and Donald Trump both go to separate areas of the border tomorrow. Brandon has a lot of thoughts on that subject. Let's just say he's not happy with Joe at all. You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. We are following the details of Hunter Biden's testimony on Capitol Hill today, behind closed doors. Democrats all rushing to defend him. He did nothing wrong. Everything was fine. Joe Biden is fine. They say it's all a big scam and pay no more attention to the Hunter Biden saga, they screech. We are going to talk to, with, should the good Lord deliver him, Congressman Pat Fallon at some point during the program today. The expectation was we talk to him right now. Can't do that just because they're very busy over in Congress right now, apparently, with this Hunter Biden thing. So we look forward to Pat Fallon, although I did hear that he really gave it to Eric Swalwell today behind closed doors. Have you heard this, Dave? No, Dave's nodding because he heard me preview it. Yeah. I'll let Pat Fallon share it if we can draw it out of him. We'll see coming up later in the program. But apparently he just left Swalwell staggering again today. And yes, it involves Fang Fang. So that's all I'll say. I won't say anymore. I don't want to take it all away from you. But Pat Fallon's coming up hopefully later in the show. We're expecting him around 5:30 right now. But It's a moving target, like I said. Meanwhile, I mentioned that border visit that both Biden and Trump are taking tomorrow. And this thing, I mean, it's a scam. It's such a scam. First of all, Brandon Judd does have an op-ed today for Fox News saying that the headline on it is Biden got suckered into a border battle that he can't win. He can't win. And that Biden is being drawn in here because Trump is outmaneuvering him. And it's not hard to do that at this point. First of all, anybody can outmaneuver Joe Biden. Have you seen him walk on a stage? Everyone. You can juke that guy real easy. But when it comes to the border, it is the single greatest issue that is hurting Joe Biden electorally right now, politically, because nobody is for this. Nobody's for this madness. They're not for their city collapsing. They're not for foreign nationals invading. They're not for the crime rate going up from foreign national murders and sexual assaults. I mean, the whole thing is so crazy. And Joe Biden made it all happen. He made this happen. So Donald Trump was headed to the border both to see it and to call attention to it and to convince voters, and it's not hard to convince them, that he would be a much better alternative to Joe Biden. You want to get this thing under control? Go with Trump. You want to see the chaos continue? Go with Biden. And so former President Donald Trump and President Joe Biden will be holding dueling border visits in Texas tomorrow, February 29th. Leap year. But if Democrats are expecting Biden to put up an epic fight, they're going to be sorely disappointed, Brandon Judd writes today. Trump has done his homework for several weeks. He's been deliberating about the best place on the border to visit with several people, including myself, Brandon says, and he made a wise decision. He chose a location that will highlight Biden's massive failings, Eagle Pass, Texas. On February 23rd, Trump's team strategically released his intentions to visit the border. The leak elicited the exact response he was hoping from Biden. The knee-jerk reaction from Biden set in motion a border visit that saw him put together a trip to the safe haven of Brownsville, Texas. Trump will be at Shelby Park, the location that Texas Governor Greg Abbott was forced to seize because of the rampant lawlessness fueled by the Biden administration's policies. Biden, meanwhile, will visit an extremely slow location in a very friendly congressional district that historically hasn't even seen much illegal traffic, in large part due to the infrastructure that Trump created while in office. Oh, this just keeps getting better. And more recently, due to the immediate actions of Abbott after Biden took office. So here's what's going to happen tomorrow. Trump is going to go to Shelby Park to highlight the state's efforts to lock down the border there. He's been very supportive of Governor Greg Abbott doing that, assembling border barriers, stopping illegal foreign nationals from invading our country. Biden, meanwhile, is going to go to a place that hasn't seen much illegal traffic at all because Donald Trump helped to stop it in the first place. The infrastructure that Trump put in place is the reason any success could be found at that section of the border. And Biden, of course, will attempt to take credit for it and say, we're locking it down, and then attack Trump as wanting the border crisis to be worse. This is the crazy world we live in. My apologies to you if you just woke up from a time capsule or something. I know it's all insane. Trump. So Brandon Judd continues. Trump in America will see how walls of razor wire and shipping containers have made entering Shelby Park nearly impossible. He'll be able to evaluate how the use of his policies while he was in office has helped Abbott, and he'll be able to use the visit to expand upon his already successful policies when he's re-elected. He'll listen to ideas from opposing viewpoints, something I've seen him do many times in the past. He'll end his visit by explaining to the American people what he will do to protect them when back in office. Biden will end his visit by blaming everyone else, including Trump, for his miserable failings. Biden will see absolutely nothing that will help promote new ideas to deal with his crisis. He won't see an illegal crossing take place, though he's encouraged millions to do so. He'll be fawned over by sycophants, including the entire mainstream media. He'll end his visit by blaming everyone else, including Trump, for his own miserable failings. His handlers, made a horrible decision to challenge his Republican rival to a duel he can't win. As Brandon Judd joins us coming up in the program, 5 o'clock. We'll talk to him about this. But it is true. Biden has failed our country and betrayed us on this border issue. He's allowing illegals to not only be taken into custody, but then immediately be released into the United States. His colleagues across his party When they take illegals into custody for committing additional crimes here in the country, release them. And that, of course, was the outcome. That of course, was led to the death of Laken Riley last week in Georgia. We have updates now on that story. The University of Georgia nursing student who was out jogging, killed by an illegal Venezuelan immigrant, according to authorities. The New York Post has a piece up today on this. The Venezuelan migrant who was charged with murdering Laken Riley likely panicked and bashed in her skull when the brave nursing student tried to fight back, according to an analysis by a former criminal profiler. Jose Antonio Ibarra, 26, has been charged with multiple murder and assault counts in the death of the 22-year-old, whose skull was disfigured when she died of blunt force trauma. The gruesome details of her injuries and new warrants suggest that the University of Georgia student likely fought back when she was grabbed during a run, and her killer likely panicked while trying to subdue her. Quote, in this case, the offender was met with resistance, which he wasn't expecting. It got overpowering. He couldn't control it, and he resorted to violence. John Lang Jr., a former Georgia Bureau of Investigation investigator, told WSB-TV. Quote, but he didn't know what he was in for, and I suspect she probably fought back, said Lang, a criminal profiler not involved in the case. Quote, he's not a very big fellow. He may have been overwhelmed by her size and her strength and her tenacity to fight back. Ibarra, who's reportedly 5'7" tall, allegedly prevented Riley from calling 911 and dragged her body to a secluded area after the vicious attack. She tried calling 911 in the midst of this. Quote, concealing her body, that's just an opportunity to distance himself from the crime, Lang said, adding that investigators can't rule out sexual assault as a possible motive in the heinous crime. Quote, in looking at this whole thing, this is like a disorganized offender. That's what we call them, he added. He just does it on the spur of the moment for whatever motivating factors. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I buy that. The guy was attacking a lone female jogger. One would assume, given the history of those types of attacks, this was an attempted sexual assault. I do buy the idea that she perhaps fought back against him, and then he killed her in the midst of her desperate grasp for help as she reached out to 911. He sought to stop her and hide her body. It's so, so tragic. And, of course, this led to a huge outpouring across the country. People just completely disgusted by this. The latest in a string of such killings and assaults at the hands of illegal foreign nationals. There's no excuse for any of this. There should be zero of those. This was preventable. I saw some of the coverage that earlier this week, the AP claimed it was, quote, unpreventable. What? It was entirely preventable. He was in federal custody. He was in NYPD custody. How many times does the guy need to be in custody before they throw him out of the country? Unpreventable. And today, the mayor of Athens-Clark, Georgia, this is the area where she was killed, a guy named Kelly Girtz, it's a man named Kelly, was attempting to give a press conference on all of this. He's a Democrat, and he's a lunatic. You should hear some of the, I'm going to play it. Here, some of the things he said today. Now, he was discussing this idea of being a sanctuary, and somebody, it looks like just a good citizen who actually cares about all of this, got into the press conference and began shouting some questions of his own.
That term means different things to different people depending on the context of the discussion.
We know what it means.
Many of the elements.
Liar.
Many of the elements.
Liar.
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 We are here to listen.
Liar. You're a liar.
We are here to listen.
Liar.
There'll be time for questions.
You are guilty and got blood on your head for this murder, sir.
Many of the aspects that are ascribed to sanctuary cities
We know what sanctuary
are
city
things
means.
that are disallowed by Georgia law.
Sanctuary policy, which is what we do.
And we contribute a document every year to the Georgia Department of Audits indicating that we do not correspond to these definitions under state law.
Yes, you do.
And no policies have been adopted
Please
by the
stop
mayor and
lying.
commission
You're
that have
insulting
created
our
sanctuary
intelligence.
city status in
Sir,
Athens.
You need to resign.
One protocol that sometimes arises.
Resign!
Resign now.
You allowed
One protocol.
this to happen,
So the
sir.
mayor, just to offer you some clarity here, Athens, Georgia, they've been insisting, it's not a sanctuary city, not a sanctuary, don't blame us. But in 2019, their city council did pass a resolution that declared they welcomed immigrants, quote, of all statuses. In other words, illegal immigrants are welcome in their community. Now, the city, in the heat of all of this chaos going on across the country, just a couple weeks ago, according to Fox 5 Atlanta, clarified in a memo that the resolution, quote, merely expresses a desire to be welcoming to people from all backgrounds. So they're now claiming it was just a nonsense statement of their values. It has no bearing whatsoever on law enforcement. But boy, does it send a message. Athens, Georgia, we love illegals, come here. Well, they did, and now what's happened? The residents continued yelling at the mayor today.
Some of their concerns have to do with the 2019 resolution that was passed and signed by you after you came into office. It is entitled in support of immigrants and the undocumented community here.
The resolution I was just talking about.
It does state that all statuses are welcome. Do you want to respond to that? And does that give you said it's only a term and definition, but does that give the impression that this is a sanctuary city?
Rescind it, Kelly.
I appreciate the question.
Rescind it. Yeah,
Be
rescind
able
it.
to answer clearly, so I'll need the voices in the room to listen. Appreciate that.
Are you gonna rescind it? That's what
What
we
I'd like
want
to
to know.
know is that you're
Okay,
Athens-Clark
you're
County.
fired.
We set up-
You're fired. You need to go, sir. We don't want to hear from you no more. You're not defending us. You're not upholding your oath of office, sir. You are lawless. You are a criminal.
I'm trying to ask a question. So your press members,
non-members are press.
Yeah, I'm a press member too. We, the people, we created this.
Wait, did some member of the press say, hey, could we ask the questions and not you? Is that what happened there? I'm not quite clear on it, but he's right to say, you are entitled, by the way. You don't have to be a member of some big, three-letter broadcast network to ask questions. You can be an independent journalist. You can just be a regular old American citizen seeking out answers on behalf of your neighbor, and you're committing an act of journalism. God bless you. You're protected by the First Amendment.
And we pay your salary. You do what we want you to do, not what you want to do. That's the problem with this lawlessness in our country. You're not upholding your oath, sir.
I mean, forget serving them. He's serving illegal immigrants from other countries. They're not even taxpayers in his community. You all are welcome. And the community saying, what? That guy's definitely saying, what? And so this Kelly Girtz guy, you think he's crazy already? You think that he's nuts for the way he's acting in this briefing where he's like, why would anybody think we're a sanctuary city? Wait until you hear this. Listen to this. He decides to turn this entire press briefing, if you can even call it that, into an attack on, no, not people who kill residents of Athens, Georgia. No, not police officers who refuse to work with ICE. No, not sanctuary cities. No, not Joe Biden. No, not Alejandro Mayorkas. No, the mayor of Athens, Georgia decided to use this event today to attack Donald Trump, of all people.
Is the expectation of human dignity. While 2019 was not that long ago, you might remember the dynamic we were living in the late teens in this country, where you had the President of the United States speaking in the most vile terms about people who were foreign born. And you had that notion metastasizing.
That's a lie. He's just lying. He's lying. Show me the clip that he was talking in vile terms about people who were foreign born.
In places like Charlottesville.
This is an invasion.
Charlottesville. I'm sorry. One more time for your listening displeasure.
The United States speaking in the most vile terms about people who were foreign born. And you had that notion metastasizing in places like Charlottesville.
And then he buys into this hoax. So he's a conspiracy theorist. He's a hoaxer. He's a lunatic, and he's the mayor of Athens, Georgia. And here's finally one last piece of audio from this wild presser today.
Does that give the impression this is a sanctuary city? No, you can't call it that under Georgia law.
What we wish to do is dignify everybody's humanity. There's
No, that's not the law. You took an oath to uphold the law, not your feelings nor your opinions. That's what you're upholding.
That guy is all of us. God bless him. I mean, he's saying exactly the right things. You don't normally want these things to descend into like a guy who's, they say heckling. That's such a pejorative term. He's out there. He's just representing. Somebody has to. Somebody's got to represent the constituents, the people.
Karinge, has the president spoken to the family of Laken Hope Riley, the young Georgia student who was murdered allegedly at the hands of an undocumented immigrant?
So first of all, I do want to extend our deepest condolences to the family and loved ones of Laken Hope Riley. Given this is an active case, I'm going to be really careful about speaking to that case more specifically. Would have to refer anything specific to that case to law enforcement and obviously ICE. And the president, I don't have anything regarding to the president speaking to the family, but it is heartbreaking. I can't even imagine what the family's going through. And so,
pretty sure they don't want to talk to Biden.
Anything else specifically, I would have to refer you to ICE and law enforcement.
Just for clarity, when you say
yeah, so nothing to tell you because that's not happening. We're definitely not putting Joe Biden on the phone with the family who just lost their daughter because of him. That's not happening at all. Coming up on the program, Emily Jashinsky talks to us about Kamala Harris and Mitch McConnell, and Cal Thomas is ahead as well. All ahead on the Vince Coglianese Show.